All right, welcome back. We are COMP397 in the winter 2021 semester, and it is week one, part one of our broadcast. It's our course intro and orientation day, as well as we're going to do a bunch of stuff today. I am recording live again on YouTube, and what I have is a few people here live, and I also have some people live on YouTube. Let's see how it goes. So I'm your professor this semester. It is Tom, and you can reach me at this email address for all formal communications. Again, I've been teaching technology to students since 2011, and my main focus is on game development. I also teach in several languages, and my focus lately has been on VR. So that's kind of something that I've been working on over the last little while. My master's thesis is going to be on VR security, and I'm working on that as we speak. All right, so that's a little bit about me. So what is this course you're doing? So this is the overview of what we're doing today. A little bit about me, some course evaluation. We're going to talk about that. The topical outline that I'm going to show you, as well as there are several parts of what we're doing. So the first part is what we're doing. Who are we? The project. What are we building? Some installation steps that I'm going to get you guys to do. And then we're going to do an in-class exercise that's due at the end of the day. So tonight at midnight. And what's due next class? You're going to have assignment one, part one that's released that's due next Friday. And then we're going to talk about our schedule a little bit as well today, because that has changed a little bit. Let's talk about our schedule first. So before we get into all this formal stuff, I had sent you up on eCentennial. We're using Brightspace or eCentennial for all of our communications. So if you look at the content for the course, you can see that there's a couple of communications. One, if you found me today and you're live on Zoom, then you've already seen this one. This was the first one I sent out earlier this week. And this is the one that I sent out later in the week. And basically what it is I'm telling you that when things are going to happen. So synchronous and asynchronous sessions happen for this course. For the first, there's two synchronous sessions. One at the beginning of the week, that's on Monday, 3:30 to 6:30. Normally that's where section one meets, but I want you to consider this. Anyone can join any one of these sessions anytime. All right. So if you have time and you want to come in for a synchronous session, that means with me live, then you'll join me on Mondays at 3:30 to 6:30, or on Fridays at this time slot that I'm with you right now. Synchronous means that I'll run through the lecture material live, and I will assist you with your lab, which is usually due the Friday night, as well as with anything else you ask, any kind of questions, assignments, and that kind of thing. So that's going to be Mondays and Fridays. And this is after this week. This is the first week, so we're doing everything synchronous. This entire week is synchronous for you guys. But next week on Thursdays between 3:30 and 6:30, it's going to become asynchronous. And from Fridays, 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., that'll be an asynchronous session as well. During the asynchronous sessions, I'll be there available to help you through Discord. You know, kind of for you to schedule some office hours with me. If you have any specific problems with you and your team, I can schedule some time together and we can meet during those times. It's also time for you to set aside to work on your assignments without me. And what I'll be doing is I'll be publishing my videos for the most part every Monday during the first synchronous session, during this session right here. So that's when I'll be publishing my videos from now on. There's one time where I kind of notified you guys that I can't do that, and that's on Monday, February the 15th, which is Family Day, where I can't publish my video. So that is the one time I won't be able to do that. I'll try and do it either before that or slightly after that, but I'll try and do it before the Friday. It's scheduled for Friday afternoon, but I'll try and do it before if I can. So that is the schedule of how we're going to meet and going forward. In terms of evaluations, sorry, my voice today. In terms of evaluations, we have an example. Here's an example of some evaluations and when they're doing. You can look at the outline as well, but more or less part one, and where there's two big assignments, assignment one and assignment two. Part 1 is due next week, on Friday, and it's worth 5%. Part 2 is going to be due week 4. Part 3 is week 7. Part 1 of assignment 2 is actually due week 9. It doesn't say it here. And part 2 is due week 11, with part 3 due week 12. And that's kind of the second last week of semester. The way that it goes is like this. The first day, this week, we're learning about Unity. It's an intro to game dev as well. And one of the things that you're going to notice, because this is a pre-constructed course, is up on eCentennial in the content area, you're going to see that there is a lot of content already for you that I've put together for you, last semester for you guys to kind of look at. So things like where I'm going to post a weekly video, that'll be a video that is inside of Media Site. So as soon as I'm done doing this video, which is now live, all live videos you'll see down here where it says YouTube recordings. So you can watch the YouTube recording, or if you don't have access to YouTube because you're outside of North America where YouTube's not available, let's say, then what I'll do is I'll also post a video later on through MediaSite or eCentennial MediaSite, and it'll be hosted. I'll make it available for you guys here where it says weekly video. So both places you'll have a chance to watch kind of the recording. You can also watch this live. So that'll be live on Monday. So let's say, for example, you don't want to meet on Zoom because maybe Zoom is not comfortable for you, or you just want to sit back and watch a video recording through a live YouTube presentation, and then where you can kind of fast forward and rewind, that kind of stuff. You're going to go back and then go forward or skip or pause or whatever you want to do, and also have some closed captioning support. Then you may want to watch this on YouTube, where it gives you some other flexibility for people that need to do that. All right, so that is this YouTube recording that we're going to be doing. Okay, so this week is kind of an intro, and there's a lot of information in here that I've given you. There's also a little video on hard surface modeling that I've included, because one of the things that I've asked you to do this semester is produce some of your own models, right? So there's a video that I found from this gentleman here that produces some pretty good tutorial on Blender 2.9 and how to do hard surface modeling. It's a really good part, and there's several parts to this if you want to carry on. There's 7 parts of this playlist. It's totally up to you if you want to go through the whole part, but I don't expect you to watch the whole thing, at least as an intro, if you want to get your feet wet, and then we can have a good conversation on the Mondays. Then try and do this ahead of time so that way you have some experience with Blender if you haven't touched it before. Again, the expectation is that you don't know anything coming into the course, and there's a couple reasons for this. Even though this is a game course, and eventually this is going to be strictly for the game stream, right now there are quite a number of you that are non-game students, non-interactive gaming students, and probably more than half of you are non-interactive gaming students, which means I've got to step you through the game creation process, kind of from step 1 all the way to step X as we go through this whole process. So one thing to note is this week we're going to do some setups, and that's what I'm going to get you to do today. And later on today, at the end of the day, so before midnight tonight, you need to submit Lab 1, which is basically you just following along with me, and that's how we're going to do it every single week. You're going to submit a GitHub link, and you're going to also submit a screenshot or 2 of the Unity editor to kind of prove to me that you've done the work. Okay, so that's your screenshot on your Unity editor, all right, to kind of show us the work. Okay, so that is how we're going to do our labs. I've also released assignment 1, part 1, which I'll talk about very shortly. So that's week 1. Week 1, we're going to go into detail about this stuff. Now, before we get into detail about everything else that I want you guys to do, and this, and I'll step through each of the other weeks, I'm going to just skip forward into this download section right here. For the people that are live with me, whether you're on YouTube, and I got several screens here. I've got a screen up here where I can see you guys come in. I've got a screen for my my PowerPoint, and there's a screen up here for YouTube, and another screen over here for OBS, right? For the people that are live with me, I want to give you a chance to get your lab done live, right? In order for me to promote that, then I want you guys, let's do some downloads first. The Unity download part takes some time, and I want you to start that process first. And then what we can do is we can step back into the outline again. Okay, so let's get to the Unity download first. So again, inside of your eCentennial shell, your core shell, if you go to content, you're going to see that there's a downloads area that I put up for you. One of them is this Unity 3D download. Let's click there. And when you do, it'll take you to this link right here. So where it says store.unity.com/download-nuo. Okay, so there's two links. There's one for first-time users and there's one for returning users. Now, let me ask the people that are online here with me. I've got about 15 participants other than me, plus a couple people up on YouTube that I'm seeing that are here. Can you tell me, and again, for the people that are in Zoom, one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you guys to respond to me live a lot of times with something that looks like this. There'll be a little bar that is a participants panel for you guys, or a reactions panel, depending on the version of Zoom that you're using. You may see this, and there'll be some check marks, a check mark that I want you to put in as a reaction, or an X. A lot of times I'll ask you to do these two. There's also more reactions, like a thumbs up and a bunch of other stuff in here as well. But I prefer if you use the check mark and the X. You can certainly use the chat on both Zoom or on YouTube. But the challenge with that is if there's let's say 15 of you, there's only one of me, and if you all put stuff in the chat, I'm not going to be able to follow fast enough. So please use the reactions when I ask you. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do going forward. Okay, so here's the first question I have for you guys, the people that are live here on Zoom, is do any of you have experience with Unity? If you do, check mark. If you don't, X. Let's see if you guys can respond to that. If people are on YouTube, you can put a message in chat to let me know. And it's okay if you say no, because again, there's no expectation that you have experience at all in this course. I'm going to take you through the entire process with Unity 3D for the entire semester. So I see like most of you now, I have about half of you 8 responding here in Zoom. And I'm seeing that other people haven't responded. Again, try and respond, guys, because it's going to tell me that you're alive here with me in Zoom and that I can interact with you. But it looks like at least half of you right now that I have here live with me are not, or have never used Unity before. Some people up there, I see there's one person up on YouTube that says yes, they do. That's great. Thank you for that. But for the most part, I see that most people here live do not. I'm just going to click that off on the Zoom side. So, so what this is, the reason why I'm asking is because you need to download this for the first time. If you're a first-time user, and most of you are, please click this Start Here link, and which is going to give you kind of a terms and conditions for how to use Unity. One thing to note is that you're going to use Unity for personal reasons. You're not going to use it for, as pro. So please don't buy Unity Plus or Pro plans. If you use personal, you can make a game that's up to $100,000, and if you do, all the power to you guys. I would be really proud of you if you sold $100,000 worth of your game from this semester. I don't know how that's going to happen, but we'll see what happens. Let's agree and download. And if you do, it's going to take you to this download link where you can download Unity Hub, which is the first part of downloading Unity. When you do download Unity Hub, you're going to come up with something that looks like this. This is the screen that's going to come up. You won't have all these projects, but what I want you guys to do once you finish downloading Unity Hub is go into installs. Now you can notice that I have a few installs. One of them is the long-term support version of 2019. I won't be using these two for the most part for this course. I'll be using this one, 2020.2.1F1. And by the way, unfortunately, just today it updated to 22.2.2F1. I don't want you to use 2F1. I want you to use 1F1, where everyone else is using it too. So how do you do that? Click Add. Notice that you can easily add Unity 2020.2.2F1, but what you're going to do, because that option is gone now for 1F1, you're going to go to the download archive. That's up here. And when you click the download archive, it's going to take you to this website, which is Unity's download archive for every version of Unity that you've ever seen. And you're going to notice that there's Unity versions from Unity 3.x all the way to Unity 2020.x. I want you to download this one, which was released the 23rd of December, and I want you to add it to Unity Hub by clicking this button. If it doesn't work and somehow Unity Hub does not open after you've clicked this link, you can always download it for Windows or Mac. One thing to note is that even though I have a Mac and I'm very familiar with doing things on Mac, my primary focus this semester will be on Windows machines, so Windows. And so I'm only going to train you for Windows. So if you have a Mac, it's okay. You can still follow along. And most of the things that I'll be doing when you're in Unity or Blender will apply to you as well. They're cross-platform products. However, I'm not going to give you Mac-specific buttons to press or anything like that. I'm not going to ask you to press the Command button as an example, or the Options button instead of the Alt button or the Control button. Okay, I'm not going to do that regularly, only because I want to keep things succinct for the people that are here in Windows. And I don't need you to work on a Windows machine, but it's probably the easiest for you to do. Okay, so once you've added Unity Hub or this version of Unity to Unity Hub, then what you're going to do, let's suppose this is the one. It's not, but let's suppose it is. I'm going to step you through how the typical installation looks. I'm going to click Next. And when you click Next, you're going to see some options to install. I don't need you to install Microsoft Visual Studio Community 2019 because most of you are software engineers right now. And one of the things that you're going to see is that you probably already have Visual Studio installed. If you don't, this is going to be the primary editor that we're going to be using for scripting this semester. So you can certainly add it. But if you already have it, please do not include it. It's just going to waste your time and going to increase your download size. The next one is we're going to be developing in the first half for WebGL, but in the second half, we're actually going to deploy to mobile, in fact, to Android, which is very exciting. So what we're going to do is I want you to install each of these pieces here. Click all of these ones, which is going to add about 4 gigs to your installation, which, it can take quite a bit of time. And that's why I'm getting you to do this right now. In fact, overall, you're probably going to add probably around 10 to 15 gigs of installation files to your machine. And that's why we're doing it now. And it says here, look, it says total space available is this much. Total space required for me would be 22 gigs. Again, I'm not installing everything. I've already done this. If you're not on a Mac and if you don't have an iPhone, then you don't need iOS build support. So please uncheck this. I have both, so I've left it on. If you're not on a Mac, you don't need Mac build support. So uncheck this. All right. But make sure you check the last 3 ones. So Universal Windows Platform, so UWP, as well as WebGL and Windows build support. If you grab those 3, you should be able to do everything we do in class together. All right. Then you can see further down that there is documentation. I haven't included it because for the most part, all of our documentation is online. The latest version of Unity gives you everything you need online, so you don't have to check this one. And then there's also language pack support. It's not that big. And if you need language pack support, it's there for you to check. I don't need it, so I'm not checking it. But then you can click Next. When you do, it'll start installing Unity. And it's a long install. That's why I've got you to do it now. It'll start cycling. You'll see a little bar that comes up on the top here that's starting to install Unity 2020.2.1 F1, not 2F1, please. Okay. That's the first part. So let's wait till that it happens, and you can keep Unity Hub open while we do other stuff. Meanwhile, since we're downloading, might as well download Blender as well. Let's do that part. So for Blender, and again, I was asked this semester or in this week so far, can I download Blender from Steam? You certainly can, but we're going to download Blender from the Blender site. So that's blender.org. Again, you can get the link for blender.org if it's too much for you to go to. If you go to week 1, and if you go to where it says Blender 3D download, it's the same link, just in case you missed it, right? So blender.org. And then what I want you to download is download Blender 22.91.2. And what Blender is a asset creation tool. It's about 165 megabytes or thereabouts. It won't take long. And when you're done, try and run Blender. It looks something like this. So first it's a bit of a screen and it comes up like this. But the first time you run Blender, it won't give you this. It'll actually give you something that looks like this. Try that again. This. I'll be okay. And notice in here you have a couple of options. One of them is this quick setup option, and it says, what kind of shortcuts do you want? Blender, or do you want, and how do you want to select things in Blender? Left click or right click? Spacebar, what is the spacebar going to do? Is it going to play the animations, or what are you going to do? And what theme do you have? Now, I had a previous version of Blender when I was installing this thing, so I chose my previous settings. But what I'm going to use, because I'm going to show you how to use Blender this semester for some asset creation, is I'm going to use the right-click methodology, as well as from a spacebar perspective, I'm going to use search on the spacebar so I can search for things. I recommend you do this too. So that way, when we search, if you can't find the shortcut that I'm showing you on Blender, you can use search to do the same things. So please do that when you set up Blender for the first time. You can always modify this later on, and I can show you maybe on Monday where you can modify those settings. And an example would be if you go to File in Blender, when you finally load it, you can see that there are several options. One of them on Edit is Preferences, right? And in Preferences, you can set up your interface. Here's your interface, right? And it also sets up your theme, right? So this is your interface, your color picker, your temporary windows, your status bar, everything is configurable in Blender, as well as if you look at the editing menu, how that works. So new objects, how you do it, and so on. You can adjust all of these options from themes to the viewport to how that looks. It's completely configurable in Blender, right? So they're all in here. Input, you can see how mouse and keyboard works, right? You can also emulate a numpad if you don't have one, but I highly recommend a numpad, a number pad if you have access to it, and a 3-button mouse. So I recommend grabbing a 3-button mouse for this course. If you don't have a 3-button mouse, you're going to have a lot of challenges when it comes to the stuff that we're doing in this course. How to navigate, you can modify that. Your key mapping, you can modify your key mapping and your key binding here. And if you notice, there's you can change your preferences. For by accident you selected left and you want to follow me and select right, you can certainly do that. And there's other key mapping that you can do here. All right, so that is you installed Blender. I'm going to keep Blender up, but I'm going to minimize it like we did with Unity. Okay, so that was the Blender install, and hopefully you guys did that. And let me go to the next one, which is going to be the Git download. So I'm going to go to week 1. I'm going to go to the Git download now. And on the Git download, why am I getting you to install Git for Windows? Well, because most of the time, Windows does not have Git installed. And we're going to be using Git and GitHub this semester to keep track or to do version control. And you guys should know something about version control, being software developers in this semester. And hopefully you've had access to Git and GitHub in the past. For now, we're going to download this download here like this. Let's go into that. I've already downloaded this project because I've done it a couple times. So I'm going to bring up the Git download and show you how to step through it and some of the options that you have here. So I'm just going to run this, and it's going to bring me into account control. The dialog box that's going to come up for the Git download looks just like this, right? And if you notice, it says, for me, only show new options, only show new options. And if I click onto that, I can just install Git again. I don't want that. I want to uncheck this because I already have Git installed. I want to click Next. In this screen, notice it says select components. I want all of the components except for the last one, which says check daily for Git for Windows updates. I don't want you to do that. That'll be a little bit annoying for you. Okay, click Next. The next one is, hey, what editor do you want by default to be used by Git? I have Visual Studio Code as an editor, and for you guys who don't know what that is, it's a great little editor. If you're doing things for the web, as well as if you just want a simple editor and not a full-fledged IDE, Visual Studio Code is one of the best editors that I know of that we can use. It has great extensions and support for JavaScript and for Unity and for Python and for a lot of other stuff. This is a great little editor. And I'm also going to use it as the default editor for GitHub, but you don't have to, and for Git. If you don't have that, and if you don't care about that, just accept the default and move on to Next. The next option is adjusting the name of the initial branch in your repositories. Again, some of these you'll have, some of these you won't. If you're running on a Mac, by the way, you don't need to do this. And I'm just going to bring up my Mac just for a second. So if I bring up my Mac, which I have, I'm just going to use TeamViewer to teleport into the Mac. Teleport. And here I am. Let's teleport into my Mac. And if you notice on the Mac, one thing to note is you already have Git support built in. Why is that? Because a Mac is built a lot differently than a Windows machine, right? So for example, if I was to do git -- version in a Mac's terminal, you're going to have a version of Git pre-installed. Okay, that's enough for the Mac. But on Windows, you won't have that by default. And that's why we're doing this in the first place. So if you have a Mac, you don't have to probably step through any of this process at all. But if you don't have a Mac and you're like most of us, then you're going to go into this step and you're going to say, adjusting the name of the initial branch in your repositories, let Git decide. Click Next. Adjusting your path environment, I want you to say, use Git and optional Unix tools from the command prompt. Click Next. For choosing HTTPS transfer protocol, choose OpenSSL library and click Next. When it comes to configuring the line ending conversions for Windows, check out Windows style, commit Unix style is fine. Click Next. For configuring the terminal emulator to use with Git Bash, check the second option, use Windows default console window, and click Next. For choosing the default behavior for Git pull, just keep the default, fast forward or merge, and click Next. For the credential manager, this is new this semester. The credential manager, there's a new one that actually is cross-platform, which is pretty cool. Use this one, not the deprecated one, and click Next. In configuring extra options, make sure both of these are checked. A lot of times, enable symbolic links is not checked. Make sure both of these are. Click Next. One thing I don't want you to check is enable experimental support for sudo console. So make sure this is unchecked and then click Install. I've already installed it, so I'm not going to click it, but it'll take a moment for it to install Git for Windows. To test it, and this is where I'm going to ask you if you're with me, I'm going to click Start and I'm going to go to Command CMD and press Enter. When you're done installing, you should be able to do this, Git -- version on a command prompt in Windows, and you should get something that looks like this, Git version 2.30.0.windows.1 or .2, one of those two. All right, so for the people that are in the participants that are here with me live, are you with me? Check mark if you're with me, X if you're not for some reason. I've got one check mark. And for the people up on YouTube, I know this is going to be a bit delayed, but maybe you can tell me if you guys are all ready to go with Git for Windows. See a couple check marks. I see 4 check marks out of 17 people. Okay, at least it's growing a little bit. I'm just checking to see if you guys are with me or not. Making sure that you guys are good. And I want to do that because, again, I want you to get your lab done by the end of this session today. All right, so I don't want you to have to watch the video again that we're making right now if you don't have to. So that's why I'm checking to see and slowing things down for you guys. But for the people who are watching this later on, hey, Isaac, thanks so much. The guy on YouTube, he gave me a check mark, and some of you here live haven't. That's awesome. All right, well, thank you for that. I'm going to move on now. Clear all. All right, so this is what you should see with Git for Windows. And why am I getting you to do this? As a backup, because sometimes what happens is we want to be able to go into our command line and fix some stuff, and you won't be able to do that. I won't be able to fix you without support for Git. So that's why I got you to do it now. Let's check. Let's just close this down. Next, we often need to use a tool to work with GitHub. I'm going to be using a lot of times command prompt, but a lot of times people like to use a tool because they feel more comfortable using a user interface for Git and GitHub as opposed to using command line. So there's a few of them. One of them is a very popular tool called SourceTree. SourceTree is also owned by Atlassian, the same people who own Bitbucket. It is a really good outfit, and they have a lot of really cool tools. SourceTree is a cross-platform user interface tool for Git and GitHub, and it's very well supported. Another tool that you can choose to use, again, these are optional downloads, as an example, is desktop.github.com, the tool that comes right from GitHub. This one here is a no frills GitHub user interface that's cross-platform with both Mac and Windows, but not Linux. All right, so if you're on a Linux system, this won't work for you. But on Mac and Windows systems, you're good, and it's no frills. I mean, like really simple. Okay. And the last tool that I'll talk about, so these are the kind of two popular tools. The last tool that I'll talk about is the one that I use if I'm going to use a user interface, which is GitKraken. GitKraken. And GitKraken is this tool. It's cross-platform, Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's also free. And if you look at the features for GitKraken, it has a pretty cool intuitive user interface, which I like. It's very graphical, right, as well, and very easy to use. So again, I recommend using GitKraken. I think it's the easier one of the three. It's also cross-platform, and it's cool to look at. It has dark mode and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of why I like to use it. When I launch GitKraken, let's do that now together. Once you finish downloading it, it'll look like this. It'll start doing its little dance. It'll launch. And a lot of times what you'll get is, I'm just going to make file new tab here. You'll see that it'll start you with something that looks like this. GitKraken also has support for something called Glow boards or GitKraken boards, which is very helpful when it comes to doing Agile project management, which is what we're going to be doing partly this course, right? So again, I highly recommend GitKraken if you're going to use a user interface, and I'm going to use this today. So if you want to follow along with me today, download GitKraken. I think it's a good backup, and it solves a lot of problems, especially when it comes to merging code with somebody else. Okay, so that's GitKraken. All right, cool. So we've talked about tools downloads. One other thing I'm going to talk about this semester, and before I get into the outline, is I want you guys this semester, because you're building one app, even though in the PowerPoint, I'm showing you several assignments. Really what these assignments are little component assignments to build one app, one application, one game by the end of semester. And that's what you're building. And I want you to keep track of your releases, which is what these little assignments are, with some kind of project management tracking tool that is Agile friendly. So there are a couple of tools that people use. I'm just going to open up another tab here. The most popular tool, I would say, and easiest to use is something called Trello. So Trello is a free download, or actually a free web-based program that you can use. And what it does is allow you to use these task boards, which are free. One thing to note is that Trello is owned and managed by Atlassian. Again, the same guys who made SourceTree and who own Bitbucket. Whoa. This is pretty cool. This is a very popular one for indie developers. Again, who don't want to pay anything. And there's some really cool power-ups you can get for Trello, everything from time management to as well as reporting. And you get a free power-up when you start. Another project management tool that you can choose to use is GitHub Projects. So if I say GitHub Projects, lately what they've done is they've really improved project management with GitHub. GitHub Projects allows you to, it's a no frills, again, project management functionality. It gives you the same kind of boards that you would have in Trello, but there's a bit more setup involved in making sure that they link to your issues and those kind of things. However, once you get GitHub working, it works fantastic, and you might be very happy how it combines with your GitHub repository, which is awesome. All right. Again, a little bit more involved and a little bit more no frills. You can certainly extend it. There's some extensions that you can download or install online, plugins, if you will, on GitHub to allow you to do better project management. This tool is improving, and it's definitely one to watch. And it's very, again, flexible in terms of the way you use it. So that is GitHub Projects. But the last one, and probably the best one for you guys to learn this semester, is Jira, my friends. Jira is the de facto standard for Agile project management. And notice it also is owned by Atlassian. And this is, there's no intention here to make you guys work with Atlassian products. It's just that this is the de facto standard. A lot of industries use this. The banking industry and other software engineering industries use Jira as their main tool of choice for Agile project management. And as well as game developers use Jira. And a good example of that is Ubisoft Toronto uses Jira. So if you want to be in the game development field and you want to put a feather in your cap or improve your CV, your resume, you should learn Jira. But one thing to note about Jira is you can use part of it for free. It says get for free. But when you want to use it on a regular basis, it costs $10 a month for 10 users, all right? And it's not a bad amount of money because what it does is it fully supports Agile project management boards and Kanban boards, as well as advanced reporting and tracking features, which is really, really cool with Jira. So again, $10 a month, if you divide it by the 3 people that might be on your team this semester, because most of the things you're going to be doing for me this semester is within small teams of up to 3 people. And I'll be talking about that in a second. You can share that cost, right? So, it's probably the cost of an expensive copy, about $3.33 or thereabout every month, right? Which is a really cool tool. However, I have to also put up my hand and say that Jira is probably the harder one to learn. There's a bit of a learning curve on how to use Jira. And I recommend, if you're going to do this, take a look at LinkedIn learning resources online that are free for us as Centennial College students to learn how Jira works. But again, really great from resume building and an opportunity for you to learn how to do Agile projects the right way. So that's Jira. All right, so that is our tools and downloads for today. Let's go back to our little PowerPoint that we were using just as a guide. So we've kind of covered all of this. We kind of said, hey, you want to download Unity, probably still downloading and installing for you, I bet. You finished downloading Blender and you've got Git installed for Windows users. And if you're a Mac user, that was already done. And then maybe you want to choose an optional Git UI tool. I've chosen Git Kraken, which is the one that I recommend. Okay, so we've already done this step. All right, let's go into what we're building today before, again, I go into this long outline so you understand what's happening. So I'm going to go and skip a step and go back to, what we're doing. So what's our project overview? So we're not doing all of the topical outline yet. Well, what I've done for you guys is if you go up on eCentennial, and this is one of the first things I did, is I shared with you, I released with you a group assignment called Assignment 1, Part 1. So if you go in there, there's 2 little options in there, little folders or files, if you will. And the 2 files that you're going to see are Assignment 1, the WebGL game Part 1. It's a PDF, as well as an external game document template that I want you guys to use for Assignment 1, Part 1. Again, this is worth 5% of your final grade, but it kind of explains the main project that you're going to be building this year as well, this semester. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So I'm going to bring up the document here so you can see the project. So here's Assignment 1, Part 1. And again, we're sitting at just over about half an hour or 38 minutes of our recording here when we're talking about project or Assignment 1, Part 1. So I'm going to try and annotate this thing for you guys as we go forward. So what is Assignment 1, Part 1, and what is it? What you're going to be building is, this is the first part of a 3-part assignment. You're going to be using the Unity game engine. Okay, so again, I've had some questions in the past. People have come to me and said, hey, Tom, I want to build the game, but can I use Unreal? The answer is no, not this semester. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, Tom, can I use my own game engine and build it with C++? No, you can't use C++ this semester either. You need to use the Unity game engine and the C# programming language. That's what you're going to be limited to this semester. Good news is that most of you should know the C# programming language here at Centennial because you've taken, most likely, COMP100 and COMP123, or if you're an international student and you've kind of come into the second year, you've kind of got some equivalencies, and you probably know either Java or some other object-oriented programming language that's very similar to C# that you can use. So it's not like you're going to use an uncomfortable language that you're going to learn from. So again, in this semester, even though it says web game programming, we're not going to use JavaScript or TypeScript or anything else this semester. And this is new for COMP397. In the past, we've used our own framework when we built our files from scratch. This semester, starting this semester, and this is the first time, we're going to be using the Unity game engine to create a WebGL game for the first half and then a mobile game for the second half. Now it says that you're going to be working alone or with a partner, but I will accept, and you're going to notice this, up to 3 people working together with you. I highly recommend that you do not work alone on this project. And what I've done for you guys up on eCentennial, if you go to groups, you're going to see that I've created 50 groups up on eCentennial. Some of them have already been filled up with groups of 3. Thank you very much, guys, for doing that. I really appreciate you guys pairing together with other people. I think you guys are going to have a much easier journey than guys who are there on their own. This is not a good idea, guys. And what I can do, and I haven't done it yet, some people have requested me to remove them from certain groups and add them to others. I will do that by the end of the day. But you notice that there are quite a few groups that are still empty. What I'd like you to do is form up in groups. If you don't, you will not be able to see assignment number 1. You will not be able to see it. And that would be a shame, because if you don't see assignment number 1, you can't do it. You won't even see the details for assignment number 1 until you connect and join a group. Even if it's a group of 1, if you intend to work on your own, which I highly do not recommend. I do not recommend you work on your own on this one. All right, so what are you going to be building? A somewhat polished 3D game, a 3D mobile game, right? And it's going to include also a menu screen, an option screen, as well as a game over screen. There's going to be one play scene, so one level that you're going to be building. Now, if you guys don't know of games, and if you're new, and a lot of you are, if you're new to games, that's okay. I'm going to step you through the whole game production process, one step at a time, every week. So for this project, the first part, and for the first assignment that you're going to do, this first, like assignment 1, you're going to be targeting WebGL. WebGL is a 3D web framework that you're going to be targeting with Unity. And that means that your game will work on a browser. Okay, so for this assignment, there's no functional logic that's required for this one. All you're doing is planning and acquiring assets and setting up your assets just sitting there in Unity. They don't have to work, all right? I'm not looking for any kind of functionality right now, just some planning and asset kind of acquisition or creation, if you're that kind of creative person. If you're a game student and you're watching this video, then maybe you want to do some asset creation, because I think it might be great for you guys to learn that. However, you don't have to. You can certainly download anything you need from the Unity Asset Store, as well as other sources like OpenGameArt, which I'll be talking about on Monday. All right. In this part, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be hitting several tasks. So you're going to be developing your game's concept. So what game are you building? You're going to be filling out and creating a game design document, the one that I've given you online already. You're going to create and or acquire graphic and audio assets for your game, as well as you're going to initialize your first GitHub repository for your game. And you're going to select a project management tool, as I mentioned earlier, whether it's going to be Trello, or you're going to use GitHub Projects or Jira. One of those project management tools are the ones that I want you to use. So what are we building? Okay, you don't have a choice of building any game you want. To make it easy for all of us, so that way we can keep on the same page, I've given you a choice of 3 different game projects that you can select. Okay, now bear with me. There are some that are easier than others. Okay, so you can build a platform runner shooter, the easiest of them, an isometric tower defense, harder, and a sandbox crafting survival game, hardest. Okay, so if you really want a challenge, you're going to build one of these 2. If you're new to game development and not an interactive gaming student, I recommend you choose this one, which is fairly straightforward to build and won't kill you in terms of development time this semester, especially if you have 3 people. I think you'll be able to pull this off and make a very nice and tight kind of little project for 3 people, no problem. There are some common requirements for the game. By the way, this project description, it doesn't mean in this project description that you have to pull off all of these things by Friday. This is a project description for the entire project, for the entire semester. That means you're going to add to this project through the entire time, and by the end, you'll have all these pieces, and I'll help you build a lot of them together in class. Okay, so I'm not leaving you to do it on your own. I'm actually going to help you through the entire process. So common requirements are, the first one is a character camera controller. My expectation is that you'll have some kind of character, either first person or third person character. First person means you're looking through the eyes of the camera. Third person, you can see the character, or a camera controller if there's no character. I recommend that if you're new to game dev and you're doing a platform runner shooter, stick with the first person controller. It's nice and easy. There's no character model you have to worry about, and you can step through each of the platforms as if you're there. All right, so first person character controller is a little easier than third person. Third person is harder and ratchets up the difficulty for the platformer or anything else that you have here because of the camera work that we're going to have to do to make sure that the third person controller works properly. So it ratchets up the complexity. And if you just have a camera controller, that would work well for something like an isometric tower defense game. You don't need to have a character controller for isometric tower defense. And it makes sense because your character is the game world in this case. It's more like a strategy game than the others, okay? The other common requirement, again, going to number 2, is an inventory system. All games will have an inventory system, whether you're a platform runner shooter where you pick up items to help you get across platforms or shoot your enemies or whatever, whether you're an isometric tower defense game where you're going to pick up resources to build your towers, or whether you're a sandbox crafting survival game where you pick up some of your tiles or voxels in order for you to craft your environment. You need an inventory system. All 3 games need that. You're also going to have a health system as well as something called a mini-map. Health system is like toolbars, health bars to show what your how much health your player has or even health of your environment. Mini-map is a secondary camera that looks at your scene as an example from a different perspective, usually either from a bird's eye view or from a side view, and it gives you kind of a pulled back view of your entire level or most of your level to give you a hand in terms of navigation. A mini map. I'm going to show you how to make this when we talk about camera, so you don't have to worry about doing it on your own. As well, I'll be helping you with the health system, so we're going to build that together. Then all games are going to have some kind of AI. Okay. So all your enemies will have some kind of basic intelligence. And that what that means is that we're gonna build the AI enemy together. They're gonna use something called an AI sensing suite, which is line of sight between you, the enemy and you, if they have it or not. It'll activate their actions, as well as some kind of sensing radius, which means that they'll either be able to hear you, quote unquote, or smell you maybe. Somehow, some kind of detection. They can detect you without seeing you. All right. And as well as some kind of pathfinding algorithm whether we use A-star, which is a very popular pathfinding algorithm, or a nav mesh agent, which is built into Unity, which I'll show you how to do. As well as simple steering behaviors. If I want to seek to find, if the enemy wants to seek to find you or flee away from you, pursue you when you're running, or evade you when you're chasing, how it's going to arrive and slow down. It may also use other kinds of behaviors like flocking and pack tactics if you want to challenge yourself. But that is going to be something we're going to be talking about. So this game is going to use a little bit of AI as well, which is really exciting for some of you if you've never done AI, actually for all of you if you're building a game. Your game should also have the capability to pause, save, and load. And we need a user interface for that, where I want to be able to save my game or load my game. It could be very, very simple. All games will have sound effects and music. Sometimes you'll have impulse sounds like hit sounds or bullet sounds or explosion sounds. And there'll be music as well that'll be accompanying all of your scenes, if you will. And the music would have to be adjusted so that it makes sense for each particular scene. And we'll talk more about music later on this semester. So those are all common requirements. Every game that you make will have some version of these requirements, in the game. Furthermore, there are game-specific type requirements. Let's start off with the platform runner shooter. So you made your common requirements, but then for the platform runner shooter, you need some kind of other requirements. I want you to acquire or create 3 different platforms. three different platforms: either a static platform that just sits there and hovers in space, something that moves, maybe a ramp, some kind of an elastic platform, maybe something that's a bouncy platform, maybe something that spins or swings around or whatever. At least three different platform types you need to include in your game. Okay, the platform, the player must be affected by physics, which means that's the second thing. Now we've talked about AI, and in your case, there's also physics. In fact, physics should be a factor in all the games that we make. All right, so physics, and physics is built into Unity, guys. Don't worry about it. We'll step through how that works 1 week at a time. Long falls should definitely kill the player. So if you're falling really, really far, you know, and you've fallen for a while, that should kill you or hurt you really badly. Hazards, you should pick at least 3 types of hazards: a spike pit, a collapsing platform, and timed flames are examples, but there could be others. Maybe some kind of swinging, weapon or something like that that you have to avoid or time yourself as you move through. And finally, your platform runner shooter should have a goal, someplace where you want to go to or reach. It could be a door, an elevation, a higher or lower, a tunnel, a chest, or some kind of non-player character that you want to save, whether you're saving the prince or the princess or something like that. That's your goal for the runner shooter. Now, given all those requirements for most of you, you might say, well, Tom, you're telling us the exact game that you want us to make, but actually there's a lot of leeway here. I haven't told you what the aesthetic is going to look like. Is it going to be retro? Is it going to be sci-fi? Is there going to be a different theme to it? Are you going to make it more cyberpunk-like? Although cyberpunk is a bad word these days, but Cyberpunk 2077 as an example. There's a lot of different things that you're gonna be asked, or that you can do, right, in terms of theme. And you also can change the dynamic, how you win the game. As an example, what kind of tactics can you give your player to win the game? So there's mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics that you can change to make your game more of your own. And you can use some influences. What I want you to do is think about some of the influences, some games you play that influence you to make the game in a certain style that you want. Okay, so that is your platform runner shooter. Online, you're asking how to join the Zoom meeting. You can join the Zoom meeting through eCentennial. Okay, there's a link through eCentennial on the as an announcement. Okay, isometric tower defense. Again, if you're choosing this option, and I'm not going to go into too much details here right now, just from a time perspective, but this one would be if you're a gaming student or if you want to challenge yourself. It's going to include resource gathering, different tower types, and different enemy types. So again, even more challenge than your basic requirements. And the hardest one is your sandbox crafting survival game, where you will procedurally generate your entire environment. It's going to be something like we're going to use an algorithm or some kind of noise pattern to with several passes that you're going to use to procedurally generate your entire game world, which is pretty cool. Okay, so that's something that you're going to be doing. I recommend something like 64 by 64 voxels or square units in a 3D environment, right? And you're going to have a day-night cycle and a destructible environment. Again, more to come on this. If you're interested in doing this kind of game, again, be wary. There's a lot of scope here, and it's very challenging to pull off properly. It sounds like it's easier than the tower defense game, but believe it or not, this is really hard to make it work and make it work nice. All right, so again, only if you're an interactive gaming student, or if you're a software engineering student that's really that wants to challenge themselves, and you have 2 really solid partners that know how to code well, I wouldn't choose this option. All right, that's what I talked about right there. All this stuff here is the project description. Okay, so this is not what you're going to have to pull up for next week. Next week, you're going to create a part of this project, just one component, which is going to be all of your assets. I want you to find your assets, and I want you to plan what this project is going to look like for your particular game. And I've given you examples or deliverables that I want you to put together for the project. This is where the deliverables start. The previous section was just information about your project. What are you building? So here are the deliverables. I want you to get assets to create things like your menu screen. This can include buttons, your option screen, your gameplay screen, your game over screen, just buttons and user interface elements and sounds that work with all of the screens. You have to kind of think through this thing a little bit, and you can use examples online. You don't have to create any of it. You can acquire them right through the Unity Asset Store, and I'll show you how to do that on Monday when I release the video. Also, I want you to choose an avatar or some kind of vehicle, character, or camera that you're going to be using for your scene. All right, so that's something you have to decide on. We're also going to create an inventory system, and all I need you to do there is create the user interface. So that means that you can design the user interface for your inventory system in Unity, but it doesn't have to be functional in any way, right? Same thing with the health system. There's no functionality, but you need some kind of health bars. Again, you can download assets for your health bars from the Unity Asset Store or from other free sources, okay? A mini map, resources for the mini map is what you need, and we'll be talking about how to get those and add your mini map to the canvas. They're very, very simple, okay? Again, like it says, the mini map does not need to function for this assignment in any way, but you need to acquire or create some appropriate sprite assets, which I want to show you how to do on Monday. Your game will include enemies with AI behavior detailed above. I want you to get the enemy assets. So whether they're little models or whatever they're going to be that are going to represent your enemies. Your gameplay level must include a user interface that allows the player to pause, save, and load the game. So you need to develop this interface, again, at a very high level at the beginning. Again, you can just get your user interface elements that you can download for this part. And the last part is get all of your sound and your music assets for the game. So get all of your assets. I'm asking you to get as many as you can for this iteration, for this assignment, which is due on Friday. And that's with you and your partners. Don't do it alone. Get them to help you out. And again, notice I say them and not, hey, do this all alone. This is awesome. You can do this project by yourself, solo. I highly recommend against it again. I don't recommend that you do this. It's a lot of scope for one person, and the scope isn't going to go down because you're alone, or if you're with two, okay? Game requirements. There are specific game type requirements just for Friday. So one of them is if you're doing a 3D platform, get the platforms. Get the different platforms that you can use, right? Get some of the hazards. Get a spike pick. Get something that can collapse or something that represents flames. And the other thing is get the assets for the goal that you're making. I'm looking for you to get as many assets as you can for the game. If you don't get enough assets, you'll lose marks in this section. Okay, so game requirements. Again, there's other requirements for the basic tower defense where you're getting tower assets and resource gathering assets and enemy types. And for the sandbox crafting game, you'll be asked to, acquire assets at, for example, what the voxel assets look like as an example. And for your day-night cycle or countdown, you need to acquire things like labels for your canvas and so on. And for the destructible environment, I want you to grab some animations or create them for your environment. Again, like I said before, easier, a little bit more difficult. I would say a lot more difficult. So from a 1 to 10, I would say this is between a 4 and a 5. This game here is between a 5 and a 7 in terms of difficulty to make the semester. And this game is definitely between a 7 and a 10 to make it right. Okay, and it could be lower, but then it won't work right. So again, it's probably as difficult or more difficult than the isometric tower defense game. Okay. So that is your asset. So that's one aspect. And I've asked you to kind of combine in groups of up to 3. And there's a reason for that. I want you to think about 3 people having 3 different kind of jobs. I've talked about a couple of different aspects. One of them is project management. I said, hey, get a project management tool. So one of you should kind of be the project manager. The person's going to keep track of your meetings, going to run the meetings, set them up, make sure that things are submitting properly on eCentennial and so on. that is the role of the project manager. And I'll produce some recommendations for each of the roles on Monday. I will produce recommendations for those. The second aspect is some kind of lead software engineer that's going to take care of things like, or a lead developer, if you will. You're going to get assets. You're also going to do, you're going to lead the way when it comes to coding. You'd probably be the most comfortable coder. You're all going to code at the same time, but I recommend that you, that you're going to be the most comfortable in coding, and that's what's going to make you the lead software engineer. And finally, the last person who's going to work with this document is going to be the lead game designer. And think about the game designer as the person who has the vision for what the game is going to look like. You may be someone who loves to play games, and you have an idea of what game you're going to make with the requirements and the constraints that I've given you. And that's the person who's going to be in charge of this document right here, the game design document. However, you're not going to make the game design document yourself. You're going to use a template, and the template is going to look like, just a moment while I bring it up. The template is going to look like, come on, this. It's going to bring up in a second. It's an older template that I've been using for many, many years. I want you to customize this thing and make it your own. And let's see when it comes up finally. When my Word decides, yeah, here it is. It was something that I got from Microsoft way back in the day. So again, you can decide on the name of the company. So I recommend you make a little name for your group. You can make whatever name you want, something that makes sense for you, and make a simple logo. Okay, it's not required, but it'd be nice if you had some kind of simple logo that you paste in here. It could be just some shapes with your initials or something like that, or the name of your company. It would be nice, right? And then a working title of your game, whatever the game title is going to be. You kind of come up with a creative title for it. You may or may not, this is optional, come up with some kind of subtitle or a slogan for your game. For example, if you made a game called, Explode a Platform or something like that, and you can say an explosively good time, as a slogan or something weird like that. Here you put in a version and change the dates, please, as well as your author's names should go there. Again, put in a recent date. You can see that this is an older document, as well as you should include a table of contents, version history, where you're going to put in your GitHub link and other version information later on. This is going to be a living document that we're going to continue to use for every release, for every assignment part from now until the end of semester. So this is not something that you're going to just make once and then forget about. It's something that you're going to use as a guide for what you're building this semester. And then you're going to get into some pieces of the document, the game overview, gameplay mechanics, and so on. And all the pieces, think about this as just a template that you can fill out. If there are any square brackets that you see in the document, get rid of them. That's just directions. And so are the round brackets. Anything that's in round brackets like this, these are just directions on what to put in those sections. Get rid of those too. Only put stuff in the document that it describes your game. And I've given you steering directions on how to do that right here. I said, hey, the title page should have a company logo, game name, and the author's names and student IDs. Table of contents should be there. The version history should be there. The game type should be there. You should list the game type somewhere. MDA, your mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics. You should list those. And that means things like how you win the game. That's your mechanics, the rules. Dynamics are how strategies on how you can use the rules to win. And aesthetics is, how the game looks and feels. So those are your mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics, almost like the DNA of your game. Controls, how are you going to control the game? Are you going to use mouse, keyboard, and touch? As an example, for the first half of semester, it's going to be mouse and keyboard. For the second half, you're going to include touch controls, okay, because you're going to make a mobile game. I'm going to show you how to do that. Also, you're going to create level and user interface sketches for every one of your screens, your menu screen, your option screen, your gameplay screen, and so on. So again, what I'm looking for is a tool for you to do this. Don't give me hand-drawn sketches. You can use any tool you want. Again, this is just a plan, a very high-level plan of what your game is going to look like. I don't expect you to be artists or anything like that. I just want you to provide a low-fidelity plan of what your game is going to look like. Then I want you to capture your current state of the game, at least 4 screenshots of your game right now. What does it look like at the beginning? It should be fairly empty, but there might be some additional screenshots that you have right now for any assets you've included in the game. What does your character look like, or vehicle or camera? What are your AI, your enemies look like? What do the weapons look like in your game, and so on? Okay, and that is your external documentation. That is worth 10 marks out of 100. So this is worth 40 or 30 for your game type requirements, 40 for your common requirements. So that's 70 plus 10 is 80% of what we're talking about so far. 5% is for internal documentation. I'll show you how to make a simple script on Monday where you can add your name, author's names, student IDs, and so on. Version control. So GitHub is going to be worth 5% of this project. And you're going to create a demo video. And you're going to be used to creating these demo videos on a regular basis here in this course. One of the reasons why I get you guys to make a demo video and no other report is because I've never met you before. Chances are I don't know who you are. I've never seen your face. I've never worked with you. And we're with the current way we're doing stuff remote because of COVID. I want you to, create a very short video, 5 minutes, showing me your assets and your documentation. Keep it very short. Okay. I want you just to voice over the video, and you can use any screen capture software you like that you feel comfortable with. I highly recommend OBS, which is what I'm using today to stream to YouTube. And again, for a link for OBS, you can certainly go to OBS. If you search for OBS, Open Broadcast Software is what I'm talking about. It's a very simple installation and download, and it's cross-platform on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So it's something that you can use across, and it's very straightforward to use. All right. Here you can decide what you want to add to your video and your audio, and you can layer all of these things together to create whatever effect you want. I don't need any post-processing effects for your video. It could be raw. I want, though, one slide, just one, to frame or to start your video. Think about this as a title slide, all right, to say, hi, my name is Tom, and these are my partners, Ben and Luke. I'm making these names up, okay? Ben, and there's a Ben here. Hi, Ben. It's not you. But let's say I have another friend, Ben and Luke, and they're working with me on this game I'm working with right now. And here is assignment 1, part 1, and we wanted to show you our assets that we got, this week, Tom. And here are our this game design document, and you can see here's our sketches for the game. And talk about your game a little bit. Talk about what influences you to make this game and all that kind of stuff. You're really just going to demonstrate your game screens in the Unity editor. In future videos, you're also going to be talking about your code, right? So you're going to be talking about how you did the things that you did. I only need one of you to talk in the video, just one, the most comfortable person. I'm not forcing someone who's not comfortable doing a video to make one, but there should be at least one person in your team that knows how to talk, or feel comfortable talking on this format. But I want to see everybody's pictures, so actual images of you, current images of you and your partners on the title slide, your full names, your student IDs, and the course code. So who's working on this assignment with you? That is the first slide that you're going to provide to me for this project, okay? Now, I need, for this thing to be good, and I mean this, for this video to work, I need to be able to see your screen, and I need to be able to hear your voice. If I can't hear your voice and I can't see your screen, the video is useless. And my friends, I will not accept a submission when it comes to an assignment that does not include a working video that has sound and proper screen, so I can see your screen, okay? I'm just letting you know, this is from an academic integrity perspective. All right, so there's no tests in this course, but there is, kind of this, oral and visual kind of, representation of your work. and this is going to happen in your demo video, every single assignment. And finally, with your final presentation, we're going to do a much longer video on your entire work, the stuff that you've done this entire semester. Okay, so this, again, all the stuff I've detailed is due on Friday. Again, only from the deliverables, not the entire project. I don't expect you to make anything functional, no functionality whatsoever by Friday, just assets and, again, your plan. And if you're going to position your assets on the screen, that would be great. Okay, so in a static pose, let's say. All right, so submitting your work, an external game design document that I talked about, a working link to your GitHub project that you're going to put up everything on GitHub that you have. Your project files will be zipped and submitted to your learning management system, which is Brightspace for eCentennial. And one thing to note, this semester, I will not accept RAR files. So if you hand me a RAR file, I will just say, please resubmit your work with a zip archive, right? Your short video demo link should be something you give me, not the whole video. Please do not give me a video. I will not accept a video, just a link to your video, which means it's got to be on YouTube or it's got to be on Twitch or some other streaming service, or it could even be on Google Drive. As long as I can click on it and make it go, that's okay. If it's something that I have to download, for example, if I have to download 200 megabytes for each of you, and there's, let's say 50 teams, that's a lot of megabytes that I have to download, and I can't do it, guys. So I need you to make it a link, not a downloadable video. At the same time, I also want you to specify which Agile project management tool you'll be using to track your progress the entire semester. You can choose Trello, Jira, GitHub projects, Glowboards, whatever you want, but there must be some project management tool that you're going to use. Even Microsoft Project, which is mostly for waterfall type projects, is okay, right? Again, this assignment is only weighted 5% of your mark for the course, but I'll tell you, it's a key assignment that sets up the rest of the course in a nice way. All right, so if you don't do this assignment properly, the rest of the course you'll be spending catching up, and you really don't want to do that. There's a lot to do here, and you should do it with at least 2 other people. All right, I've talked for a long time, nonstop. I'll tell you this before I take questions. I'm super excited to see the type of stuff that you're going to come up with. I know you guys are creative people. I know you guys are. You have it in yourself to create something with code and with a really cool tool like Unity and with Blender and with other things that I'm going to give you this semester to really wow me. I really know this is possible. It's up to you what you create for this semester. And I think for the people who are interactive gaming students, again, I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to come up with these little constraints. And for people who are just software engineering students, when I say just, you guys are great people. You know what you're doing. You're here because you want to better yourselves. You're here because you want to push your envelope and learn something, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that in this semester. Okay, so questions before we take a short break and before I get to the second part of the semester or the day today, and I talk about more of the schedule, and I'm also going to talk about more of how to download and how to do everything. Right now we're sitting at 2:43. And I've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes. I'm just going to go a little longer with this part and then pause. So any questions so far? So I have a question that says, how do I leave a group? The only way you can leave a group is if I remove you from the group. That's how. Okay, and Dylan, I see you're coming up. You remember you're live on YouTube. If you're okay with that, you can certainly ask your question on the mic. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I was just wondering something. So I downloaded Blender, like you said, and I encountered this weird thing where it says your graphics card or driver has limited support. It may work, but with issues. So it says newer graphics drivers may be available to improve Blender support.
Yeah.
So it has a button that says find latest drivers or continue anyway.
What are you using a laptop for your game? For your Blender?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it an older laptop?
I think it's like 2016 or something.
It's not that old. What kind of does it have a discrete graphics driver or no? Like, is that, in other words, does it have like an AMD card in it or an NVIDIA card in it, or is it just Intel's Iris drivers?
Yeah, it's Intel inside 10TM.
Yeah. Ooh, okay, so that's pretty old. So that's fine. So yeah, you could try and find other graphics drivers, but I probably will warn you that your machine will have limited support, even if you get the drivers for what you're going to do in 3D. Because the 3D application, even for Unity, you're going to have challenges, my friend. I'm so sorry about that. So yeah, I'm just letting you know ahead of time, because if you're getting that message with Blender, Blender is like, I don't know, easier to use on your graphics card than Unity a lot of times. So again, it really depends on what you're doing with Blender. But yeah, I'm a little bit concerned for you. That's all I can tell you. So yeah, try and find more up-to-date drivers. My only thing is I'm not sure if I would do that now because you're on the call with me and it may ask you to reboot your machine. So maybe you want to do that during our little break, right? And then you can do it and reboot and come back on Zoom. I'll leave it up for you and it might be okay for you. Okay?
Okay, so like you mean reboot as in press the one of the two buttons, like find latest drivers.
You can find the latest drivers, but it may ask you to reboot. Just don't reboot until after we come back from break. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, all right.
Okay?
Thank you.
And by the way, Dylan, it may not do anything. Just letting you know. All right. So I don't want you to get your hopes up that it's going to run perfect. I don't know the capabilities of your machine. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
One thing to note, I want to kind of come up and say this as well, is in this course, you're going to see my machine running fairly quickly. And it's because I've got some pretty good hardware on my machine compared to maybe you. Don't fret. It's okay. Most platforms should be able to run everything that I'm showing you, although there will be a speed limitation on some of your hardware, right? So you might run a little bit slower than me, and some of it might run really hot. If you're running a Mac, as a good example, especially if it's a pre-2016 Mac and you're trying to run this stuff, it's going to probably run pretty hot, all right, in terms of what I'm doing, because it's going to use the graphics, discrete graphics driver in the Mac a lot, okay? Just letting you know. Okay, so any other questions before we move on to just the outline? Then I'll stop talking for, let's say, 10 minutes, and we'll come back and do our little lab. What do we have to submit in lab 1? Sarjil, not yet. We're going to do it together. I'm going to show you what to submit in kind of an interactive exercise that we're going to do together as a group. Okay, so I'll show you what to submit in a second. Okay, and Juno asks, how do I leave a group? The only way you can leave a group is if I get you out of there. So you may have to stick around just after class and I'll remove you from the group. Okay, and for people who have sent me messages, I've got some messages from, again, on Outlook, directly sending me messages saying, hey, can you remove me from a group? I'm going to do that later today. Okay. On that, remember that I'm going to be using Discord for our communication. So one thing that I've got up on eCentennial is a Discord link. So take a look at that. Discord is a community communication tool that we're going to be using for this course that is very popular with gamers and students alike. So if you're not comfortable or never used Discord before, I'm going to grab the link for you right now and populate it inside of our chat link. All right, so here's our Discord link. So please, if you haven't had a chance to join Discord, or if you didn't see that there's a Discord invite link, please do that now. Join our Discord, and that is our a place where you can speak to other students, get help, ask for partners. And there's also going to be another professor, Professor Wallace, that's going to be also joining me on Discord from a moderation perspective. So if you need help, take a look, join Discord. That's where most of our communication is going to happen, especially when it comes to non-formal communication. But again, for formal communication, please use this email address to connect with me. If you have a problem with the course, if you have a problem with yourself, something that is serious, connect with me through this formal communication vehicle, so that way I can respond to you properly. All right, one more thing. So we're sitting here at week 1. Notice that lab 1 is due tonight at midnight. Assignment 1 has been released and is due next week, again on Friday at midnight. And we're going to learn several things. Notice that I asked a bunch of you, or a bunch of stuff that you're going to do for me for this assignment, or these X number of assignments. And you can see that we're going to be talking about simple physics next week. After that, on week 3, I'm going to be showing you lights and shadows. Week 4, we're going to get into the camera and how to make a mini map and that kind of stuff. In week 5, we're going to be talking about user interface layouts and responsive design. Week 6, we're going to hit post-processing effects, color grading for that change of day-night cycles, and animation and particle systems. And week 7, we're going to talk about sound and music. That's week 7. So that's the first half of semester. By the first half of semester, you'll have a prototype of your game that's pretty good. All right, that only works in WebGL. And then in the second half of semester, starting with week 8, again, there's no intersession break this semester because of COVID, and we only have 13 weeks together. In week 8, we're going to be converting your game, the same game you made in assignment 1, into mobile for assignment 2. We're going to be talking about mobile design and monetization in week 9. Week 10, I'm going to show you how to procedurally generate some stuff. So to help you with people who are doing, your a survival crafting game. But by then, if you're waiting for me to week 10, there's a lot more stuff we can talk about ahead of time. So please hit me up. By week 11, I'm planning to show you multiplayer networking. Again, it's not part of your game, but I want to discuss it at the very minimum and show you how to use Photon. And by week 12, that'll be the last lecture. And it'll be the post-processing stack shader graph. We're making our custom shaders, and we'll also use VFX graph for really cool custom effects. So that is week 12. Week 13, there's no lecture, but there's the final presentation that each of your teams are going to have to make either synchronously or record it. You can choose which one you want to do. And that, my friends, rounds out our outline for the entire semester. Okay, lots of stuff to do, and we have very short time to do it as normal. Any questions before we take a short break?
Sorry, just one more quick thing.
No problem, Dylan.
I think I emailed you about it, the accommodation thing. Do you want me to send you the official document from the school?
If you could, but what we can also do is if you want to hang back after this, we can have a conversation around it, and I can talk to you about other stuff and how we're going to do things. Okay?
Oh,
If
sure.
you have time afterwards. If you don't, it's okay. Send me the document, and I'll do what I can for you as normal. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right. Anybody else have any other questions before we take a short break? All right, guys. Here's what we're going to do. So we're sitting at 2:52 my time, and I'm just going to post a little note here, and we're going to say on break, and we'll be back at, again, I'm thinking 10 minutes or so. Let's say 3:05, a little bit more than 10 minutes. So 3:05 p.m. Okay, my time. That's when we're going to come back online. I'm also going to stop the YouTube video for now, but I'll make another one, and I'll share the YouTube video up on eCentennial. All right, so we'll take a short break, and we'll be back by 3:05. Okay, guys? I'm just going to stop the video now, and I'll see you back at 3:05.